All right, so this is going to be two parts here on my manacled bind. So I am going to cut this and then glue it to the end pages. A lot of people just glue it as is, but when you are binding a book, you want the inside covers to have a nice, clear, even amount around here. So on this bind, if you can see, you can see something underneath it, but you want everything underneath the paper to be an even number or an even amount. So when I first started learning, I had this 3/4 inch tool that I just made out of binder's board. And then I got a set of binding tools off of Etsy. And this isn't quite 3/4 of an inch. It's actually 5/8 of an inch. You can see that right there. And so this is fine. The 5/8 is fine. I like these tools because it has the 90-degree cut on there. So you can just side it right up to the angle and everything. And this is really great for the putting the spine together and everything. But that's for another video. So I usually just use one of these knives. I've found it a lot easier than an X-Acto knife because I can just pop the top, the section off whenever I'm done. So basically, I turn it around and I do one of two different things because it is a little bit more difficult to do. I will take a Sharpie and I will cut it, or I will just hold my fingers down like this and then just cut it smoothly like this. And that way it's an even amount. For these ends right here, I just cut it at an angle, just a little bit, as well as over here. And you can see I'm using some cheap scissors. And then I just discard this. This is actually a thick enough piece that I could use this to reinforce, perhaps on another book at a later time, just in case. I need just a little bit more reinforcement, so I'm going to save that for later. And then I just do the same thing on the other side. Pretty simple. And if your knife starts to dull, that's why I just take off the second piece, like the end piece. I always, it's like second nature, just always put it down because you never know when you're going to need, when you're going to grab onto it and you poke your finger, and because you're being a stupid person, a dumbass. I've done that too many times to admit. Anyways, this isn't too bad. You shouldn't really see this whenever you glue the end pages to the, when you glue the end pages to the cover. So I'm just a stickler about putting your tools away after you use them. I have this little mug over here. I got this at a craft show. This lady makes these sleeves that have these little things in them, and it's just really perfect, and it fits in this mug, and I just put all my tools in it because I don't like to leave stuff around. I did break my bone folder the other day. If you can see, the tip chipped off. But I do have another bone folder, but I've been using the other end. I just like that pointed end. Okay, I'm getting distracted. All right. So I'm just going to glue these down. Sometimes when you have thicker tape, you can actually take the ends and kind of weed it out like this. But since it's ribbon, I'm not going to do that. It's such a thin thing of ribbon that doesn't really matter. These are here for reinforcements. It depends on how you want to do it, okay? So it's such a thin amount here. I don't need a lot of glue. And I put it underneath, and that way I can just press this down and just glue it to the actual text block, to the end of the end pages. So this isn't going to be loosey-goosey before you actually put it on the cover. So I just use the glue, and then I just start adding glue because the muslin is pretty open, so you don't have to have a ton of glue to start with because it'll just seep through. It's pretty nice. And you do that on both sides. Now, I tend to have something else that I can put underneath the book and let this overhang when I do the other side, because I do this consecutively on both sides. I don't wait for one side to dry and then the other, because it's not necessary. All right. So I'm gonna just pull this over, and I just make sure that the glue isn't gonna hit whatever I have underneath. And then I just do the same thing on the other side. Now, I'm gonna do a thicker thing of glue for this side. I really like muslin, this muslin that I use to reinforce the spine. It's like this netting. It just works really well. And I got some on Amazon, a huge folded like thing of it, and it's gonna last me for years. The amount of books that I made when I first started bookbinding, it was like an obsession when I first started bookbinding. And I didn't do these typesets and stuff. I was doing blank journals because I journaled a lot when I was younger. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. All right, so that is that. Now, I got some glue on the end here, so I'm just scraping that off. All right, always put your tools away. I mean, you can do whatever you want, but it's so much nicer to have a clean, easy to work with things, so you're not constantly putting stuff away. Now I'm going to start measuring for the cover as this dries, and then I'm going to print on the Cricut and everything so that you can see what I'm going to do. And I honestly decided to just keep it simple. I'm just going to have the title, and I'm going to have the author's name on the front cover, and then I'm going to just have a saying that you are not replaceable on the back of the book, and it's going to be simple, and it's all going to be with this font. Even though this font wasn't used in the actual text block, I'm still gonna do it. All right. So one thing that you do whenever you are measuring for the cover is you do have to measure this length right here. And you don't want to make your cover for the book, like measure the the binder's board, before you finish this. Like, you don't know how thick this is going to be, because you don't know, especially as a new binder, how thick your thread's going to be. So you should not be measuring to make your cover before you finish the actual text block. You could be using thread that's thicker, and so the spine's going to end up thicker and it might taper down. This one is pretty even all the way across because of the thread that I use. And I use like embroidery thread that I double up because that's what I have chosen and learned to use. I also have linen thread, and I hate wax thread. I hate it with a passion on these kinds of books because it makes the spine so thick, and I don't like a tapered book. I have a lot that I've made, but I've also learned from just what I've done. Anyways, so in order to make the spine, you want to measure the spine from the edge to the edge, because you want the binder's board to be exactly the width of the spine. Now this one is 1 3/8 inches, so I'm going to make the binder's board exactly 1 3/8 inches. Now this side is the same, which makes me happy because that would be a true fuck up if I did it if I made a text block that was so uneven. So I have a lot of extra pieces of binder's board that I just kind of keep on hand. And so this is binder's board. And I like to mark on the binder's board which way is up, especially if I am making multiple cuts of the same thing. And so these are actually perfect, these two, because they will take up the whole cover, and now you're going to have a gap, and that's what this is for. This is a really nice even spacing. It's 1/4 of an inch. Okay. I live in America, so we use inches. I do like the metric system. Anyways, that's neither here nor there. So I'm going to cut the binder's board for the spine, and I want to find a small enough piece. Sometimes I find a piece that will be good for a spine because I have so many extra pieces. I also want to make sure it's about 1/8 of an inch additional on the top and the bottom. And so I love my ruler. One of my tools is just a pencil, a mechanical pencil. I like pencils better than pen and markers for the majority of the things that I do. All right, so what I'm gonna do, because I do have a guillotine, I'm going to put all of these into the guillotine, and actually, it's this. I cut this in half. This is what happens when you have extra. Nope, I wouldn't be able to use both of them. And I will cut it on the guillotine all together so that they're all the same length. And that is something that I really like. So what I'm gonna do is put these all together and then take it to the guillotine and show you what I do with that. So I have this guillotine where, why is it so blurry? When you pop the lock, why is it so blurry? I'm sorry, guys. When you pop the lock, there's that little metal piece that comes out. Can you see that little metal piece? Why is it not showing you? Well, there's that little metal piece right there that that doesn't, it comes out into the guillotine, and so it actually pushes on the papers. And I have these things here that kind of block it. Anyways, that's so blurry. So I'm just gonna line it up so that I make sure that I cut them all the same piece. And it has this guard on it that I never use. But you can see, I don't want to cut my finger. You can see the line, and I just line it up with the cut line right there, and it's usually perfect. So I'm going to cut them and then come back to this. All right, so another step that you want to take, all of the boards are cut even. And so what I'm going to do is just, I'm going to write arrows of what's up and down on both binders boards. As you can see, I've done it on this one. What I'm going to do now is measure so that I make sure that I have the exact measurements that I want. So the spine is going to match perfectly with the width of the book. And then I am going to measure a width of the spine, and then 1/4 of an inch. And the glue's not quite dry, but this is plastic, so it'll be good to use this. It'll come right off the glue. And I'm only gonna have this on here for a little bit. So there are lots of different ways that you can measure this. And so I'm just gonna make a marking right here because this is the end of the text block, and I want it about 1/4 or 1/8 of an inch past the text block. So you're giving this space to make. You're gonna have to include the width of this binder's board when you put it all together. So you're going to get a piece of cardstock whenever you are putting the whole cover together, and I'll show you how I do that. I'm gonna go cut this and then and be right back. I forgot to say, whenever you are cutting this, I mark 1/8 of an inch from the end of the text block, but then I add another 1/16 of an inch because you want to count in like the thickness of the fabric. And so this faux leather that I'm going to use isn't actually that thick. It's a little thicker than some book cloths, but it's almost the same as some book cloths. And so that's going to cause it the necessity to have it just a little bit bigger. And so I'm going to add in another 1/16 of an inch to the end of it, the edge of it, just to compensate for that. And then I'm just going to draw a line across so that I make sure it's even, and I want them to be the same. I want it to be very 90-degree angle straight. I wanted to show you, if you don't have a guillotine, you can just use your knife. And I have this ruler. I have a lot of rulers. I'm a big fan of rulers. This actually has a metal edge on it, and I absolutely love this. I don't know if you can see, I have a lot of like remnants of glue and stuff on it. It's see-through, has great lines on it, and it's pretty exact. If you don't have a guillotine, you can still do this. You can make clean lines and just line it up. Now, if you don't have a metal ruler like this, I also have these kinds of rulers which have like the cork on the back. These work well too. I just really like this ruler because it is see-through, and I can line it up and I can see underneath it that the measurements are good. Now, and I don't push down too hard. I just continue to swipe it one at a time. And just continue going. And it doesn't take that long. So if you press down too hard sometimes, if this is sharp, if it's dull, then you are going to have problems. You're going to have to push down harder and it can slip and you can cut yourself. You don't want to do that. And so if it is starting to feel dull, just take the tip off like that, if you get one of these. And then you have a fresh blade to work with. That's why I like these so much, okay? So if you don't have a guillotine, you can do that. Now, let's get ready to glue the binder's board to the piece of, what is it, cardstock. Oh my God, sorry guys. All right, so you're gonna want a piece of cardstock that's a little bit wider. So on each side of your spine, you're gonna want the 1/2 inch measurement, and you're gonna want the thickness of a binder's board. In my case, this binder's board is 1/8 of an inch thick. And then because I'm using my 3/4 inch tool, I'm going to also add another 3/4 of an inch. The reason why I'm doing this is because I want to make sure it's even all around whenever you open the book. If you choose to use this measurement, that's just going to be the 5/8. And so it just really depends on what you want. I like a little bit thicker, so I'm going to use the 3/4 inch tool. All right. So I had this piece of extra cardstock. It's a little bit too thin. So I went in my drawer. I have all these extra pieces and I'm just going to use this. You are not going to see this. So it doesn't matter if it's like a pattern piece or not. This is actually perfect. I'm just going to lay it down there and just kind of put the measurement in here. It's pretty much perfect on that side. And if it's not perfect on this side, then I'm going to have to dig in my box and get another piece. Oops. It's actually almost exactly perfect. It's a little shy, but we're going to work with it. Okay. All right, so you want the binders or the cardstock to be either equal lengths, which I like personally. I like it to be equal. And so I have seen other binders who like it to cut it just a little shy, so it's a little bit of a gap. Everyone has their own preference. So it's neither here nor there. If you're comfortable with what you're doing, to be completely honest. Okay. I'm just putting my tools away. I just really like to have my tools away. What I like about this is because you can see through it, is that you can then line up the lines to the edge of the paper, so you make sure you're cutting it straight. Okay. So I have a drawer with all my extra cards stuck up here, all different sorts. So it really doesn't matter which side you glue it to, but I want this to be pretty much perfect. And so I want to have the exact middle so that I match up the middle to the middle. So this is 3/8 of an inch. It's 1/2 inch. 1/2 inch, so it's going to be right there. It's a lot of measuring because you want to make sure you do everything right. And then this is 3.5 inches. So that's going to be 1 3/4. One 3/4. So I'm just marking the middle so that I can match up the middle to the middle. Now, this is when this tool is going to come in handy when I start gluing. All right. This is just an extra piece that I was going to use, but then I got this piece here. So it doesn't matter which side you glue because you're not going to see any of this. It's all going to be taken care of when you are covering it up. I put a little bit of glue on it and I just start to glue. I was taught to go from the middle out. That way it lessens the bubbles. And I was also taught to use an extra piece of paper underneath. But I tend to hold it because I want to save the pieces of paper. Now this is going to take more glue. Every PVA glue is slightly different and you have to learn how to work with it. Some dries quicker than others, and some dry yellow, some dry clear. It really doesn't matter because you're not going to see the glue, so I don't see why it matters. I had someone question that and I'm like, it doesn't really matter. Every company has different recipes for their PVA glue. As long as it's PVA and it's for bookbinding, then it works great. Okay, so kind of put a little bit too much glue on it. This tends to get dry really quick, and so I tend to over glue this glue because it becomes a little tacky. All right, so now I'm just going to line it up, and I'm not going to line it up perfectly at first because I want to make sure I'm getting it exactly on the middle, and then I'll move it down, and that's pretty much perfect. And I'm just going to hold it there for a little bit. Another thing is to turn it over and just start to kind of push it out from the middle, and then you can get the excess glue out so that it doesn't cause bubbles. See how I over glued that? So I just kind of swipe the glue off. I have a trash can underneath here and I just kind of swipe my finger on that. And that's pretty much perfect. I just get all the excess glue off. I probably do things people don't understand why I do them, but they make sense to me in my head from what I've gone through. Like I wipe glue on my hand like this, and like a little child, like we used to with Elmer's glue. I don't know if you guys used to do that. You're a younger crowd probably that's going to be watching this. All right, so now I am going to, I'm just going to bend this a little bit because I don't glue on the same side. I glue on the other side. And because I glue on the other side, I like to know where the edge of the spine is. That way it's easier for me to determine where I'm going to glue. Okay? And with this cardstock, it's because it has a pattern on it, it's harder for me to see. And so I'm just gonna make a little crease. I might have to draw a line right where the edge of the thing is, just so I make sure I'm doing this good. Yep, that's pretty good. Because this next step, I am going to use all these measuring tools to make sure that I get the space in between it. So I have the quarter-inch tool, and then I have the piece of binder's board, and I'm just going to use this to create the measurement of where I'm going to glue. Okay, now I also can just do a 1/4 and an 1/8 of an inch from here, from the actual line that I just made. That would be easy as well. And then I'm going to glue all throughout here and then stick on one of the covers like this so that it's on the outside, and I will tell you the reason why I'm doing that. Okay, so instead of using these, I'm just going to use my ruler because I have it handy dandy right here. And I already drew a line, might as well use this, but it's nice to see what I'm doing with this. Okay, so you can see right there it fits. It's like a 1/4 of an inch and an 1/8 of an inch. And I just draw that, and so everywhere I'm drawing this squiggly is where I'm going to glue. Okay, now I'm going to show you what I mean whenever I'm going to use this whenever I glue it on. Whenever you use a piece of paper for the glue, to make sure you get the entire area covered, you want to have a piece of paper underneath to kind of swish the glue off. Now, I always do a smaller amount of glue before I start to swipe it through. I want to make sure I get all the way to the edge line. I never really use these rubber paintbrushes, but I really like them. So you see I'm swiping it down to the edge. It makes it a lot more precise. I'm not wasting as much glue. I really like these. If I get a little over the line, that's fine. It's another time when you need to be a little bit more precise. I have a little weight over here that I keep my brush on so that the glued end doesn't land on anything, and so I constantly keep it up. So you see I'm swiping it off the page, so the page is catching all the excess glue. Okay, and this is actually a fucked up page. So basically I messed up on a printing job for a typeset, and I just messed it up. All right, so I'm going to stick this here and line it up alongside the line, and I'm going to push it up against the spine that's already there, and I'm just going to hold this down so that I can place this evenly along here, because I want this to all line up, and so this T-shaped tool really does help. If you don't have this, if you drew that line there, then you should be fine. You should be fine if you just use one of these tools. If you just have this right there, as long as you drew the line and you have it all square, it should still work for you. If you don't have one of these tools, you can create your own 3/4 inch tool or 5/8 tool. It doesn't really matter. You can do this without all these fancy tools, and this isn't even fancy in my opinion. Someone 3D printed it. It's nice to have all these different things. All right, now I'm just gonna smooth this out. I do get a lot of paper cuts doing this. Okay, now I'm gonna bring this page back, and I make sure I just double up using these pages, but I have a lot of mess up pages like this so that I can use them for this purpose. I don't use them as much anymore because I've gotten so used to just kind of holding it up in the air, but for a new binder, this would be really helpful to you if you did something like this. I just make sure I get it to the edge first, up to this line. Then I can start brushing it down off the page. Okay. All right. I usually fold this in half, and then I still can use this side, so I'm going to just set it aside. And then take my tool. So I'm pushing this up with my hand and my thumb on the spine so everything's even, okay? Right. I just like to get the glue, like glue starts to bubble out whenever you are using too much glue, and then you'll get used to how much glue to use and whatnot. And then use my bone folder sometimes, but as you can see, no glue seeped out because I used the glue pretty good. All right, so this is the end that's going to actually fold in. So the book should fold in like this, okay? And the reason why is because the reason why I put it on the cardstock like this and not the other way around, I just really like when the book has this indentation right here. And I actually have 2 knitting needles. I used to have just 2 wire hangers that I pulled apart. So I will put it in the press and put these hangers in, or these needles right here, and it'll press down and actually make a really nice seam right here on the book. Okay, so the text block has been drying since I put the glue on that. So let's make sure it fits. Okay. Look at that. Look at that. It fits. Now it's a little bit wider, but I kind of like that. It fits perfectly. Look at that. It has a nice edge to it all the way around. It's kind of an even edge all the way around, so that looks good. All right, take this out. It's still a little tacky, just slightly tacky, so I'm gonna let it keep drying. So now I'm going to put the cover on it. All right, so this is what I'm going to use on the spine. And so you can see right here, this is what the spine's going to look like. But I want this to cover over to the cover here. I'm going to do it about 1/2 inch. And then I'm going to overlay this over it. So there's going to be a 1/4 inch gap right here. And so, but I want them to be over each other because it'll just look nicer. It'll look cleaner. This won't fray, but so I might do this over the edge. When you are using book cloth, it's made out of fabric, and so you see these edges will fray. So you want to cover it up with either paper, because if you use book cloth on book cloth, you'll have to fold over the edge like this, and it just makes it thicker. It looks really nice and clean, but it makes it thicker, so it'll be a thicker edge. And so what I was just thinking in my head, I will cover it with the book cloth first, and then just really make sure I make a very clean edge on this, and then I can put it over, like that. Now I'm thinking. I'm thinking. All right, let's measure this out. So I want a 1/2 of an inch, so that's 2/4. I like this ruler because it actually has the 1/2 inch with the 1/8 of an inch and 1/16 of an inch markings there. So you know exactly where 1/8 of an inch is. All right. So I am going to glue this in, and I'm going to glue it in here, so I don't want it to be exactly this width. I need to actually add in 1/8 of an inch on both sides, and so I just want to make sure I'm doing this right. I could do the whole book in this, and it might be just super pretty just to do that. Oh my goodness, now I'm changing my mind. This is the problem when you are doing bookbinding, is that you have these issues. Oh, this might actually just be so much prettier. Should I do this? Should I just do it on the whole thing? Because look, I have this much. It's going to take this much to do one book. But look how much more I have. Yeah, I'm just going to do it on the whole thing. I'm just going to do it on the whole thing. Yeah, let's just do it on the whole thing. This is the fun part of bookbinding. This is the fun part. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and do it. This particular fabric, or faux leather, has like almost a felty feel to it. But when I tested this out, I was worried that the glue would seep through. It's just when you fold it over, the glue doesn't really stick to the fabric, and so that's why I don't have a gap down here. But I'm gonna do this. I'm going to actually glue all of this. Now I am going to cut. Make sure I have enough here. I'm gonna cut this edge. And I have a little bit of excess. It doesn't matter if I do this in a straight line or not. It really doesn't matter. That way, I'm just going to do the whole thing on this. Okay. All right. I'm not going to put a piece of paper underneath this. And I'm just going to glue the spine right now. So this is the fun part of bookbinding. I just want to do the spine because I want to get it in this groove before I start putting the glue on the main part of the cover. I like to get it up there on the binder's board because I want the fabric to really be connected to everything. Oh, this is going to look so cool. Just one solid piece of book. It's going to look awesome. With the red. Yeah, the pattern of this faux leather is just so beautiful. Even though there's really not dragonflies and butterflies in the book itself, it's still a great pattern just to kind of accent the angst and the major stuff happening in this book. All right, so I didn't really get any glue on that, so I just make sure I have enough on each side for the 3/4 inch tool to be able to cut it off, and then I just start pressing down on it, and I'm gonna flip it over, and I'm actually gonna use my bone folding tool to kind of start moving it out, and then I'm gonna start pressing it into the edge here. Okay, pressing it in on both sides. So just want to make sure it's really stuck on there good. It is going in the groove. Not a lot of glue is seeped out, so I might have not put enough glue on it for this faux leather. This is the first time I've worked with this faux leather, and so it definitely has, it's a little bit different to work with, and I tried to use a hairdryer on it to kind of let it be a little bit more malleable, but it's more plasticky and it started to melt. It didn't really allow me to work with it anymore, so I'm just going to keep pushing this into the groove here. It's not really ruining the edges there. All right, I'm going to get a couple more pieces of paper, extra pieces of paper, so I can glue the cover. Now, the buildup of glue that happens on this little rubber thing, the amount of glue that I lose compared to the amount of glue that I used to lose with like the bristled brushes is, I feel like I'm saving a lot of glue. For these bigger pieces, I actually have a bigger rubber paintbrush, so I am going to use that. Now I just start circling. I just start putting it on there. You can always add more glue. That's why I keep it on hand there. You want to get it into these edges right here. And then I just start swiping out. Because I want it to be on all the edges. You don't want there to be any gaps so that the fabric or paper that you use might get taken off. Like there's a bubble underneath. You don't want that to happen. And these edges, like when you've already gone through the edges, you can start seeing it dry. It's just kind of funny. All right, I'm gonna remove this piece of paper. So because this is how it is, honestly, there's really not much use for the bone folder. Because of the texture of this, you can't really see any bubbles on here. Just, this is such a pretty pattern. All right, now I'm gonna just turn it over. Not very much glue seeped out from the edges. Kind of perfect. This is a nice change from the last time. Not every step, but just the text block and cutting it, just lots of mishaps that have gotten me discouraged. All right, so I put on pretty much the perfect amount of glue. Sometimes that happens, sometimes it doesn't, sometimes you don't have enough glue. But you kind of get used to how much glue you need. I put a little bit too much on, and I just wipe it off onto the edge of the paper. Anyways, just want to make sure I get the glue on the edge there, because like I said, I don't want any bubbles. But the work time with this glue, you don't want to wait too long. It's just like when you're working with resin. You have to know the work time so that you don't you don't ruin your chances of making a beautiful piece because you didn't know how long you had to work with the glue or the resin. Because I work with resin too. And every different type of resin has different work time. So you see how that glue is getting in there and it's drying. So get this piece of paper out and then fold this over and start gluing it down. I mean, it's just coming out really well. And you kind of want to go out from the middle because that's where the bubbles are going to be. So you just want to be careful there. Okay. Oh, it's looking really nice. All right. So looks like still a gap there. So when you are working with paper and glue, like if you were to put a piece of paper on this, the glue has moisture in it, and so it will make the paper stretch, and there is a grain in paper, so it will bend easier one direction, so the grain could be this way or this direction. You always want to be working with the grain. And you can always test that by putting water on it, and the paper will start to curl in the direction of the grain. So if I were to take this little piece of paper off and put a little bit of moisture on it, it will curl. And so because the glue has moisture on it, when you're doing like a Coptic stitch bind, the covers are separate. And so when you do the inside cover, which the end pages are on these big text blocks, it will it will make the paper longer on the non-grain side. Does that make sense? And so you can cut a perfect piece that will fit inside your actual book, and the paper will expand. Cardstock is a little bit less because it's a thicker pound paper. It won't be as loosey-goosey because it is a thicker paper. The thinner paper you go, the more likely it is to bend, and because it has the moisture on it. Okay. All right. So while I'm letting that dry, I'm just going to cut 3/4 of an inch all the way around. This is super slick. Super nice. This is just throwaway. I'm doing 3/4 inch on this. I actually have been using the 5/8 measurement, but because this is a little bit thicker, I wanted to do a thicker wrap around like this. Okay. You guys are watching me the first time using this kind of faux leather, so we're going to see how it works out on an entire book. All right. It changes up when you're doing stuff and you're creating things. It can always change. It's kind of the fun part of the creative process, isn't it? When you start learning things, you start doing things, you realize that you're not stuck to a specific norm. You know, it doesn't have to be a certain way all the time. All right, I have this tool that I got with this kit. I mean, they all match the same color, but you fit it over the corner, and you can actually cut the corner like this. For a long time, I just eyeballed it, and I would usually get it right, but you want 1/8 of an inch right here And if you do a 90-degree angle, you can get it. But it doesn't matter if you don't have one of these tools. You can eyeball it if you'd like. I like that I have this tool. It's just really nice. Because I bookbind a lot, so this tool is super simple and it's nice. Make sure you don't put your fingers right here because you chop off your fingers. I feel like that's a no-brainer, and I like that this has the gap because I can hold it like this. I hate it when people say it's common sense, because not everything is common sense, you know? Not everything is common sense. All right, so I'm done with that tool. And I'm done with the corner tool, so I'm gonna put that away. Like I said, I just like to put stuff away. It's nice. All right, if you're working with paper, you really wanna do this the same way. I always do the edges first, okay? And then I do the top. And when you are doing this, you wanna make sure you have your bone folder handy. And I actually have another bone folder because I like to use the tip, but because this one is so pointed, this one's tip broke too. That's why I got this one. This was my first one. I mean, this one has been with me for longer than every relationship I've had. TMI, sorry guys. All right. Okay. So I'm just gonna put this on the edge here and use my smaller brush. I let the glue dry and then I just peel it off. It's super easy to clean these brushes. I used to have the bristle brushes and would just sit them right next to me and have a glass of water, a little jar of water to soak them in. And then I would have a little hand towel to soak the towel, or to soak the bristles on it, and it got annoying. So annoying. All right. So when you are doing this with paper or even book cloth, because book cloth has like a paper backing on it, having the paper to catch the excess glue is really handy. One thing I do like doing, especially with paper, because you want it to make sure it's getting on the edge of the binder's board, is to, when you're folding it up, I usually press it against the binder's board and just start moving it like this. Because you don't want there to be any bubbles inside. Now, this is usually not a process that takes this long, but because this has like a felt-ish background on it, it doesn't stick. You can see it's coming up and the glue's pushing out because it soaks into the thing. And maybe I should have backed this with heat and bond like I do with all my book cloth. And maybe that would work better. Maybe I should do that. But when I did this test one, it worked fine. And you can see it actually glued on the edges onto the binder's board. The glue is coming over. And so you just gotta work it down until it just starts to stay. Now this is just, this usually doesn't take as long with book cloth and paper. See, it's coming up. When the glue starts to dry, it becomes a little tacky. It helps. You don't want glue to get up to this point because you don't want it to show underneath the text block. Luckily, if you do get glue on the edge on some of these, like this faux leather, that glue just wiped right off there. That was super simple. All right, so usually at this point I bend in the corners, but because this is actually a lot thicker, I am going to cut this and fold it in like this, because you want the corner to be covered. And then I am going to kind of do this at an angle so that it doesn't stick out there on the end. And sometimes you just have to improvise. Like, I'm showing you guys how I'm doing this, but that does not mean everything I do works out. So it's taking, the more the glue dries, the easier it is for this to stay. And so I am learning how to work with this. I do think for my next book, I am going to put heat and bond on this because I think it will help. Because it is very fabricy. But it looks good. Usually doesn't take this long because the glue really picks up on the thing. That just looks really great. Another note on glue is it will bend your binder's board, and so you'll see as the glue is drying, the binder's board starts to curl. And don't worry, as long as you get glue on the other side, then it'll glue even. So that shouldn't be as much of a stress for you, okay? Make sure there's no bubbles on the edge. Because if you have bubbles on the edge, it just makes your book look really bad. Because you want this to be really tight around the entire book. So it doesn't matter if you're using fabric or paper, you want it to be really nice. Cardstock is a little bit more difficult to make sure that it doesn't have a crease when you bend it, like the fibers of the paper start to come out. So I usually don't use cardstocks on my covers. if I do a fold, I do a preliminary bone folder crease, because that helps the paper. I think the pressure of the fold keeps it all together so that it doesn't cause the fibers of the paper to break down and break apart on the thicker pieces of paper. If you understand what I'm saying. If you don't understand what I'm saying, leave a comment and I'll explain it later. So I just pushing this down, and it's actually working a little bit better than the other side. Just constant pressure. Oh, hot flash. All right, now I'm just gonna cut this so that I can push it in. The side's working out pretty good. Just lots of pressure. I didn't feel like I put as much glue on this side that I did the other side. I feel like that's helping it out. This is how you learn. Oh, this is a bad one. Bad hot flash. You guys don't know, I'm 45, going through menopause. Fun times. Fun times. If you've stuck with me through this whole video, I applaud you, because this can be boring as all get out. So boring. I enjoy this though. I am one of those people that enjoy the end result, no matter how much work you have to put into it. It's just fun. And knowing that I've gone through a little bit of trouble with the text block whenever I've cut it and stuff, and printing it, just everything about it has been like, there's been hiccups from the get-go. I wanted to do a curved spine. I wanted to do this. I wanted to sew the end bands on, or headbands on. And I ended up choosing to do a giveaway on this because it didn't come out to how I want it. So I'm probably going to make another one. And what I'm probably going to do, because I love the text block so much, is I'm probably just going to make a paperback out of it. And I think that'll be a lot of fun. Make a paperback edition, because I've been enjoying making the covers in Canva, and I can just make a creative cover and do that. Make my own copy of Manacled. I do like doing the paperback books for these fan fictions, because it makes it a quicker process. Because if you saw the stack of text blocks that I have that I've gotten finished to this point, but I just haven't made the covers for them. I think there's 8 over there. I don't know. I had a stump on one of my covers designs, Rosemary for Remembrance, and I don't know, I just didn't like it, and it put me on a stop. I was making them like every day, like one every day. I went on a printing spree and printed like 20 fics, and it was just really funny. All right, so now that I have this done, if you could feel it, you could feel like the wetness seeping through the binder's board, because, yeah. I mean, look already. That looks so good. It looks so good. This is going to be so beautiful, guys. I can't even. Oh my goodness. All right, so I'm going to show you something that I do, because sometimes I don't have a long enough piece of paper for this. I'll hold it up and just put glue on it like this, and and just use my little tool and just do it up in the air. I literally have been doing this for over 2 decades, so I have gotten used to how things work, and I tend to not worry as much on some things. Now this is going to take a lot more glue than I put on here. And I'm going to have to do another thing of glue on some of these portions. Like I said, I've never used this type of faux leather fabric, so I have not experienced how this goes down. Another thing I do whenever I'm doing this, since I decided to do the whole thing, the whole cover with this, is when you are folding over the edge here, I always make sure I go from the middle outward, because if you go inward, it not always connects. Like there could be a bubble that forms if you go from the outside in, and you just want to make sure there's no bubbles along the line. This is pretty malleable. It's just taking a while for the glue to stick onto the binder's board. But you also want to crease on this side. I tend to push in here to make sure it gets all the way up in there. See, this is just not wanting to stay down. It's the faux leather. It's a little bit more difficult to work with than book cloth and the like. I think maybe I put too much glue on it. What do you guys think? Too much glue? Maybe so. I don't know, Joe. Are there any Joes watching? That would be funny if there was a Joe. Especially when you have this spine piece, you want to make sure it gets in. If you are using 2 different, like, book cloth on the spine and then paper on the outside, or like I was going to do this on the spine and then paper on the book cloth on the outside, my original design, you always want to glue the part that's underneath, the most the piece that's the furthest underneath. You always want to glue that first, because then the next piece will overlap on top of it and create a better look. So you don't want to glue the one that's on the top, if that makes sense. It probably didn't make sense, but whatever. I'm going to keep binding, and I'm going to show people what I mean. This is just not wanting to stick. Is it? Okay, this usually doesn't take this long. It's actually a lot quicker than this. I think it might be because I have put too much glue on this. Can you see it's so wet that it's actually getting into the binder's board? This is crazy. This side is just not wanting to stick. I'm going to let the glue dry just a little bit, because it is not wanting to stick onto this binder's board at all. did use a lot of glue. And I think that's why it's not sticking. All right. I've never had to do this because it's the type of fabric that I'm using that's causing these issues. I'm not wiping any of the glue off yet because I want to make sure it's really sticking. As you can see, the glue is it's really tacky right now, so it should start to keep a hold of it. I'm just gonna hold it here a little bit. I'll probably speed this part of the video up. If I don't, then I'm pretty sure I've lost most of you anyways. I'll tell you a secret, and if you can see, you say you know my secret. Just kidding. I'm not going to tell you a secret. You're a bunch of strangers. All right. So there is that. There's actually not much more to do after this. I'm just going to get the Cricut. So I'm gonna take a little break before I do the other side. But isn't this gonna look really cool with like this right here? I just think it's gonna look really cool. I think I need to have it that side up. Anyways, I'm gonna take a little break before I do the other side. All right, as you can see, I went ahead and already did the other side. I put a little less glue on and it seemed to work a little bit better. It wasn't as messy. But as you can see, when I use the 3/4 inch tool, it makes a very clean edge all the way around, a very nice frame. And when you do those corners at a 90-degree angle with that 1/8 and that 1/8 of an inch gap, it makes the folds really nice. And the corners, they just look really nice whenever you fold them over, okay? And you want to make sure that you either do the top side or the sides first. so that each corner just everything looks the same, everything's symmetrical. So that is the cover. Doesn't that look so good? Oh, it just looks so beautiful. I can't get over the texture of this, because can you see the textures in between in the negative space? It looks like there's scales in there. Ah, it just looks really darling. I'm gonna let this dry because I have realized whenever I use the HTV and iron it on when it's drying, it doesn't take as well. And so I want it to be completely dry before I do that. And I'm not going to put the book in there yet. I'm not going to glue it in there because I like to do the HTV before I glue it in, because it's easier to do it on a flat when it's flat like this. But I'm going to go ahead and just put this in here just to see. Oh my goodness. That just looks so good. Look how beautiful that is. And it just has a really nice seam all the way around. And it just looks so good. Oh, this is going to be beautiful. Okay, that glue wasn't dry. Oh, there you have it.